Welcome to this evening's webinar. My name's Nick Atkins. I'm the Managing Director of the company that runs the Dry Eye Zone website. And we're running this webinar this evening due to the fact that this month is Dry Eye Awareness Month. And whilst it's not a UK thing, it is a US thing. We decided that it would be good to raise awareness during this month, do a bit of a webinar. We're currently putting out a lot of information on social media through the Dry Eye Zone, particularly on Instagram and LinkedIn, educating practitioners about dry eye and its implications. Some of you might be aware of the Dry Eye Zone website. It's a website where you can purchase dry eye products, but more than that, actually, one of our missions with it really is to raise awareness and education around dry eye. So you'll see on the homepage, of which this is a screenshot, a blog section. If you're not familiar with the website, you've just picked us up from social media, please feel free to take a look at the blogs at any time, obviously, certainly after this webinar, because you'll find a lot of useful, unbiased, scientifically backed, researched information into dry eye. Now, when it does come to the Dry Eye Zone, we have a range of products. We're a distributor rather than a manufacturer, so we're in the lucky position to be able to go out and find products that we think will make a difference in our portfolio. Our business is actually more focused on supplying optometrists and opticians on the high street, particularly the independent sector, and supporting those guys out there. And most of our products are actually sold through independent opticians and optometrists. However, we have this website where we also sell direct to dry eye sufferers, which I would assume most of you who are on this evening are. So you won't find lots of different eye drops, for example. You will rarely find more than one or two products in a category where they have very distinct features and benefits that we believe make them unique, make them at least as good as, if not better than, many of the other products in the market. So when you choose a Dry Eye Zone product, we think you're actually selecting some of the best products out there. We've done, if you like, the legwork, researching these products, getting the data in order that you don't have to. Now, one of the things that we do, some of you may be familiar with, some of you might have done some of the webinars we did last January, or this last January, yes. We run a campaign for the UK called Dry January, or Dry Eye January, effectively, and that again is about raising awareness of dry eye, getting sufferers more in tune with what their symptoms are, what options there are for relieving them. And we did 4 webinars last time with a number of experts, and we're planning to do the same thing next January, so keep an eye out for that. So on to the actual webinar and this evening's content. There's just a few things in background that I want to make you aware of. The webinar is talking about the fact that dry eye disease is a circle of care. And what we're going to look at is the key elements in our circle of care that will help you at home to potentially manage your condition. The caveat to this webinar is, whilst I am a qualified practitioner and I have a specialist interest in dry eye, it's very difficult for me to offer you personal advice, but there are questions and I will keep an eye on the questions. If you think of something, just fire it in and I'll probably deal with those right at the very end, so that those of you that have no more questions can leave, and those that have the questions, I'll try and deal with some of them in the final sort of 5-10 minutes of the webinar. But we know now that dry eye is a continuum. We used to talk about it being either that you didn't produce enough tears, you were aqueous deficient, or your tears evaporated too quickly and thus usually due to poor quality. So it is a quality and quantity issue. but you will, as a sufferer, sit somewhere on there, and you probably will have both. The reality is most people have a mixture, although there is a strong prevalence towards evaporative rather than being kind of the predominant symptom. But aqueous deficiency will contribute to probably about half of people who are diagnosed with dry eye. If you have done any sort of work research into dry eye, you'll have come across the tear film. It's an amazing structure. It's very, very sophisticated. And I just want to give you a quick overview of it because I'm going to talk about it a bit later on. And it's fundamentally 3 layers. Now, remember, this is thinner than a human hair. It is very, very thin. So this diagram makes it look like it's a chunky old piece of tears, but it isn't. It's really very, very thin. And there's 3 layers. You've got the outer oily layer, which reduces evaporation. This is produced by the glands, the meibomian glands in the eyelids. If you look closely along the eyelids, just behind the lashes, you'll see some very tiny holes, which are glands that produce the meibum, which makes up this layer. The bulk of it is actually water. And then the bottom layer, the problem with water is it wouldn't naturally stick to the skin. If you get your skin wet, you'll know in the shower that the water beads and runs off. We don't want that on the tear film. So we have this sticky mucus layer at the bottom, and that helps to stick and stabilize the tear film on the eye. The relevance of that will become clearer a little bit later. So we often talk about dry eye disease being cyclical. It could be that you have poor tear stability, which then becomes dry eye, and that dryness where the tears evaporate starts to cause damage to the ocular surface, and so on and so forth. The damage to the ocular surface causes poor tear stability, and you suffer dry eye. Similarly, we decided that we look at the cyclical nature, if you like, of looking after your eyes, and we've come up with what we call our circle of care. And our circle of care is simply a 6-step kind of care program that most people with dry eye will need to follow. Not necessarily every segment, but certainly the majority of them. And certainly if you suffer with a lack of the lipid layer, the oily layer, and not enough production of oils from the lids in the glands, then the first half, certainly heat and massage, cleansing and antimicrobial will be something of interest. But we'll start with heat. Heat is a very important therapy in evaporative dry eye because what it can do is help to melt the oils in the eyelids that might have become very gloopy or solidified and help them flow more readily into the eye to help prevent your eye from or the tear film in your eye from evaporating. Now, many of you will be familiar, I'm sure, if you've had dry eye for any length of time. You've either found these for yourselves or you've been recommended by your optometrist to use a traditional compress. And the original ones were sort of seeds and grains. We progressed into silica beads, those things you often find in electrical goods that absorb moisture to prevent the electronics from getting damp. They work in a similar way in a compress in that they release that moisture when you heat them up, so you get a moist heat. But I think things have moved on really, and certainly our mission has been to start supplying better, more 21st century alternatives to heat. And the 2 in our portfolio are the heated eye wand from LED Plus from Peep Club, and the iFlow heat mask, which is a USB powered mask. So if we just start with the eye wand Plus, I think one of the key things that we know, if we go back to those compresses, any of you that have used them, is that often they don't get used. Let's be honest. The challenge for most people is actually finding the time to spend 10 minutes in their day. Sounds ridiculous, I know, but we all suffer with it. We've all got busy lives. To sit, lie back with a compress on your eyes for the allotted sort of 10 or 12 minutes. You've also got, not everyone has a microwave, which is really what is required to heat these things. And if you're traveling, you certainly won't have access to a microwave. Also, what power is the microwave? So how hot is it going to get? And these things tend to get very hot and cool very, very quickly. So I think there's a place now to sort of abandon those that kind of technology and move on to these electronic devices. And the heated eye wand is the first. Some of you might have a heated eye wand already. This is an upgrade to the original Pro version. The Pro version was a smaller device that got copied quite ruthlessly by cheap Chinese copies. And so the manufacturer has developed an upgraded and patented version, which is much improved over the original Pro version. It now has a larger head, so it actually has greater surface area while you're using it along the eyelids. It stands up on its base. It has a built-in 5-minute timer and an improved battery life, and you charge it probably, depending how often you use it, once a week or so in a USB port. But while you're using it, it's not plugged in. And whilst the original wand had one red LED, the new wand has 2 more LEDs. So the way you use this is you simply run it along the lower and upper eyelids, gradually heating the lids to melt the meibum. This chart just shows you that if you look at a traditional compress, which is the light green line, at about a minute you heat it up, and it needs to be around sort of mid-40s degrees centigrade, anywhere between 40 and 45 degrees. In fact, the eye wand itself can be heated from 37 to 45. I would recommend you use it at as hot a temperature as you can. But what you'll see here is the heat of the wand, which is a dark green line, remains fairly constant throughout the process. It doesn't start to cool. And it also doesn't get excessively hot. Often these microwave bags will get to 50, 55 or more degrees. It's not difficult for a 1200 watt microwave in 30 seconds to get up near 60 degrees. And some of you may have experienced them being too hot to actually put on your eye. So one of the things you'll notice with the technology is they don't get anywhere near as apparently hot. They just get to the temperature, the therapeutic temperature you need and that you've selected, and stay at that temperature for the duration of the treatment. This new wand has 3 LEDs, as I mentioned, 2 more than the original. It uses these LEDs are safety tested and at the wavelengths that have been proven and shown to produce benefits on the skin. Now, the eyelids are very thin and very sensitive, so this is only ever done on the lower eyelids and certainly not on the very thin upper eyelid. But this is another nice benefit to, as well as heating and treating your meibomian glands and helping to get the oils flowing, you're also able to look at using the red light to boost elastin and collagen and reduce those fine lines. The green light has an anti-inflammatory effect, which aids the healing of damaged cells. And then the amber light will reduce redness and pigmentation and can potentially help to reduce dark circles around the eyes. So I think compliance has been shown to be better. Surveys that have been done by the manufacturer show definitely that people prefer using the wands to a typical compress. My wife uses it and can sit and watch the TV while using the heater with whichever LED she prefers. So compliance is improved. And one of the key things about, really with everything I'm going to talk about this evening is compliance, and it's doing it regularly. If you're not doing it regularly, it's not going to have a benefit. The iFlow heated eye mask is just really an electronic version, as you can see, of a typical hot compress, the seated type bags. The main benefit is it's not as heavy, and you plug it into a USB port while you're using it, and it will heat to the necessary temperatures. It comes with an internal sheet. It's a cotton sheet that will help to keep the mask clean. Again, those of you who use these things know that they can get quite dirty, but you can take that off and wash it and then replace it again. Once it becomes a bit tired and you think it needs replacing, you can certainly purchase replacement sheets as well. It comes with nose adjustment And it also comes with, in the cable, you've got 3 temperature selections, 39, 41, and 44. Again, if you can get to 44 and tolerate that temperature, then I would recommend you do so. Also, the latest version of this iFlow dry eye mask is made of a lot of recycled materials, which I know is a concern for a lot of people about the eco-credentials of some of these products and what happens to them once they are finished with. Also, there's a nice little feature being electronic in that the 10th and 8th and 10th minute, there is a beep from the controller, and that is telling you to have a good hard blink. So that good hard blink is what squeezes out the glands. And so what you can feel actually once you've done that, and it's a good thing to do once you've finished the procedure as well. Just have a good few hard blinks and squeeze the lids, which will squeeze the glands and force some of those oils into the tear film. The other part of it is massage, and actually your practitioner, if you have one, will, I'm not going to teach you the various ways to massage your eyelids, but certainly one of the simplest things you can do is the feature I haven't mentioned yet in the heated eye wand is that it has a massage function. So you can cycle it through heat on its own, heat with massage, and then heat with any of the LED lights, and you do that through the control button. So actually, whilst you're with the heated eye wand, not only are you getting the heat, but you're getting the massage benefit to stimulate the flow of oils onto the front of the tear film. Probably the biggest area, if the problem you have, tends to be either because it's been diagnosed as evaporative dry eye and you've got some problems with those meibomian glands being a bit blocked, or you have some blepharitis, is you need to do some cleaning. And in our portfolio, we have a product called Demex. It's a foam daily cleanser that is designed to combat Demodex and hyperkeratinization, which basically means hardening of the skin around the glands of the eyelids. So if those glands, this formulation is unique in that it contains salicylic acid, which you probably are aware is a natural exfoliant, and that will help soften the hardened epithelial cells around the gland openings. And it also contains T4O, which is derived from tea tree oil, which is effective at killing the Demodex mites. So it effectively contains 2 miticides as well in the solution. It's a very easy to use foam. I use mine in the shower every day and simply squirt a bit of the foam onto my eyes and give them a good rub. In fact, I use it on my wider face because it can be very good for the skin, and certainly for those of you with rosacea. T4O is very effective at helping to calm down rosacea. Now, Demodex, I hear you say, if you're not familiar with Demodex, what the hell is Demodex? Demodex are little mites that are a common occurrence on our bodies, and they exist in our eyelashes, on our eyelashes. And they become more prevalent as we get old. Certainly by the time we're 70 or 80 years old, 100% of us will have more of these mites living on our eyelids. The problem is if they become too prevalent and you get a sort of overgrowth, if you like, a infestation of the mites, then you need to manage that. And that is what we know as Demodex blepharitis. And what we now know is that this has been underdiagnosed for many, many years. A study in the US found that just studying 1,000 people going to their opticians, that almost 60% of them had Demodex blepharitis. So your optician or your optometrist may well start to talk to you about going on to something that is effective against that. There's a lot of tea tree products out in the marketplace. Demex doesn't use tea tree oil because it contains a lot of allergens, and principally the 2 that are here. And but what we do know about, and studies have shown, is that T4O, or terpenem 4-ol as it's known, in fact, is the agent in tea tree oil that we know is effective at killing these mites. It's the most miticidal part of the tea tree oil. So that's why we use this and we don't use tea tree oil. Tea tree oil has some stuff in there that can irritate the skin and the delicate skin around the eyelids, even in low concentrations that are for the eyes. The other thing with those is that only about 30 to 40% of tea tree oil contains T4O. So you're much better off having a 2% T4O product, which will have effectively a higher concentration of the active that you need. We recommend a 3 treatment plan. If your practitioner has told you you have Demodex and you need to manage it, or if you suspect that that's the case, and we'd recommend applying early, morning and evening for the first 6 weeks. But for the first week, just leave it on, wipe it away, don't rinse it off, and leave it on overnight, because these microorganisms come out to play on your eyelids at night. Yeah, I know, not a particularly pleasant thought at all, but that's what happens. So if you leave it on the eyelids, we know it'll have a good effect in that first week. And then we do 6 weeks, which is about 2 life cycles of the mite, and that should get it all under control for you just then thereafter to use once a day, rinsing off. And then you might consider adding a hypochlorous solution, but more of that later. So here's a before and after shot, just to give you an idea. This is higher magnification. Your practitioner can see with the microscope, the slit lamp microscope that he or she has in the practice. They will get you to look down, and you can see the sort of globules, for want of a better way of putting it, around the eyelid. This is the signs of Demodex and the waste products that they produce on the eyelids. And you can see after only 5 days already a significant improvement having used Demex on the eyelids. And if you keep using it, it will keep that at bay and stop it from coming back. We also, just as an aside, have a wipe for those of you who prefer wipes to foams. This doesn't have the T4O in it, but it is a pure Manuka honey wipe. And the great thing about Manuka honey is it's antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, which makes it ideal for dry eyes. So patients using this find it very, very soothing. It's got only 3 ingredients. The other is purified water and hydrolyzed soy protein, which boosts hydration and soothes the skin as well. And being bamboo, they're eco-friendly. They're sustainably sourced in New Zealand and biodegradable. So I was talking about hypochlorous and antimicrobials. I think this is kind of the missing link for many people when it comes to managing their dry eyes, because it's a relatively recent development. Well, hypochlorous isn't. We've known about hypochlorous. Well, it was first discovered 200 years ago. But it's something that became very prevalent actually during COVID. A lot of the hand sanitizers were actually used hypochlorous to disinfect. Those ones that were very watery, no perfume, etc., were often hypochlorous. And actually it was used in spray form to disinfect shops and public transport, for etc. Obviously, for the eyes, we have to formulate it very carefully. But the great thing about hypochlorous is it's natural. Hypochlorous acid is what our neutrophils, our white blood cells, actually release into our bloodstream to fight infection. So all we're doing is creating the same chemical artificially. It's antimicrobial, but because it's antimicrobial, it kills bacteria, viruses, fungi. It is ideal for dry eye disease, because when it's that buildup of an overgrowth of bacteria, that can cause inflammation. And so if you keep that bug count down, you will have an anti-inflammatory effect. And dry eye, as some of you may know, is an inflammatory condition. So in our portfolio, we have a couple on the Dry Eye Zone website. You'll find a couple of products. The lead product that we've had for some time is Purifies. And as you can see from the tick boxes here, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, it's non-cytotoxic. And one of the great things about it is it's a brilliant alternative to topical antibiotics. And so if you keep that bug count down, you will have an anti-inflammatory effect. And dry eye, as some of you may know, is an inflammatory condition. So in our portfolio, we have a couple on the Dry Eye Zone website. You'll find a couple of products. The lead product that we've had for some time is Purifies. And as you can see from the tick boxes here, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, it's non-cytotoxic. And one of the great things about it is it's a brilliant alternative to topical antibiotics. because you can't. Experts are saying that there shouldn't be any resistance developed by the microorganisms to hypochlorous because of the multifactorial way in which it destroys these organisms. So the one important thing about purifiers is it has a 2-year shelf life. It's highly pure. It's got a 94% purity value, and it's like many things in this world. Some products will have, well, we've tested products that can have only 20% active hypochlorous in them. So generally they're hand sanitizers rather than used on the ocular surface or around the eyes. So certainly you need to look out for good quality products because they're not all the same. And that comes to eye drops, as we'll talk about in a little bit more. Here we are. I'm just confirming what I said. I think it's a game changer. It's high purity because of the proprietary manufacturing process that the purifiers manufacturers use. And it's a very low concentration at only 80 parts per million. So that low concentration but high purity is what gives it its power. It's also pH balanced, so it shouldn't sting when it goes in the eye. Because it's balanced to the tear film. Now, I'm not going to say you don't occasionally get a sting from it, but there can be other reasons for that. You know, if something else gets in with the spray when you're using it, for example, we've all experienced perspiration getting into the eyes and making our eyes sting. So, but it is balanced to the tear film with a view to preventing stinging. If you're particularly sensitive to chlorine in pools, for example, then you might want to be careful what hypochlorous you select because it might give you a little bit more irritation than the rest of us. It's also very ideal for contact lens wearers because, of course, your contact lens wearers touch their eyes regularly and increase the number of microbes around the eyes. So it's the ideal product for them. So I would consider that these two products, Demex and purifiers, are kind of the power couple for anyone suffering with Demodex blepharitis. So first we physically remove it and kill it with the Demex, and then we keep the microbe count down to remove its food source and keep it under control that way. So a great combo for managing Demodex blepharitis and improving the condition of your meibomian glands, and thus the lipid layer of your tear film, the oily layer that stops your tears evaporating and your eyes feeling dry. But of course, when it comes to stopping your eyes feeling dry, the number one thing that most of us will be doing is, and I'm no different, is using artificial tears. It's the first line of defense for most people. I think the understanding that we have of the tear film has developed, and as such, dry eye drops have become somewhat more sophisticated over time. I think of eye drops having evolved from, if you like, the first generation, maybe going back 1990s and earlier. These were very simple lubricants, usually saline solution, often with cellulose derivatives in there, and the cellulose was really in there to thicken it up. You know, we just put thicker water into the eye, and they would provide some relief, but they weren't really doing anything with regards to improving the eye condition. In fact, there was widely at that time, and there still is to a certain extent, a view that, you know, eye drops mask by making your eyes feel better, but not necessarily treating the condition. They're masking the condition, and you really should be looking at other things as well to try and treat the condition. And so certainly we can accuse the first generation of products, and here are some that are still around today. And I think that's an important point as well, because you go to the shelf to look at what eye drops are around there, and you have no idea whether, you know, you're buying a first generation, a second generation, or the latest generation of products. The second generation really focused on improving residency time, and the key game changer for the second generation was the incorporating hyaluronic acid. In fact, eye drops have had hyaluronic acid in them for decades now, long before we became aware of the benefits of hyaluronic acid in skincare products, for example. And what hyaluronic acid does is it actually binds something like 1,000 times its own weight in water. So That's why it's great at plumping up the skin, and it's perfect for boosting the aqueous layer in the tear film. The other thing that we started to see is generally these things becoming available in preservative-free bottles. Earlier generation, the only way you were getting preservative-free was to have them in single-use vials. The third generation is kind of where we are at the moment, and new products are coming along all the time. And they've really moved the game on in that they're looking at helping to protect the eye or repair the surface of the cornea that may become damaged during dry eye. And you know, now pretty much most of these formulations are available in preservative-free multi-dose bottles, so you don't have to worry. But it is worth it if you're just checking a supermarket product. Just have a look and see if it's got a preservative, or more to the point, does it say preservative-free, which usually it does, very in clear letters on the front of the pack. Certainly, if you're using these products regularly, you don't want to put preservatives in. They're toxic, and ultimately you'll develop a toxic reaction to those preservatives you keep instilling in the eye several times a day. So as I say, the challenge really, you only have to go into Boots, and here's a recent counter in Boots with a plethora of dry eye solutions, allergy solutions, and lid cleansers, which mainly eye drops. But which one do you choose? Well, I'm just going to come back to the tear film, and one of the things that drops now are doing is targeting the different layers. We've already talked about HA targeting the aqueous layer and boosting the aqueous layer of the tear film by attracting more water and holding it on the surface of the eye for longer. But when I look at the tear film, I've got an analogy for you. There's three layers here, and if we look at the bottom with the corneal surface, you know, I think of that as the ground, if you like, and what's above it I think of as a house. So the lipid layer is the roof of the house, if you like. The aqueous layer is the accommodation, and the mucin layer is, if you like, the foundations to the house. And I think one of the important things is to try and stabilize the tear film on the ocular surface. This is a very important layer. If it breaks down, we're at greater risk of infection. We're not having such a stable tear film. And whilst there are products out there now marketed saying they've got the oily layer covered, one, the artificial oils or lipids being put into these products do in no way reflect the sophisticated natural oily layer produced by your meibomian glands. And papers currently suggest the jury's out as to whether they really work. My analogy is it's like putting the roof on when you've got subsidence on your house, underneath the house. Let's fix the foundations of the tear film before we move on to fixing the roof. And that's really where our Hydromed comes in. Hydromed is a unique patented formulation, and it's a bipolymer of something called TSP and HA, hyaluronic acid. You can see the key benefits of it here. It's preservative free. It's also phosphate free and borate free, two chemicals that we know can cause problems to and sensitivity to dry eye sufferers. And it comes in two formats. You can see the bottle and the vials. Quick note on the vials are resealable. So, or reclosable, should I say, not resealable. Once you break the seal, you can turn the cap over and put it back on and use that dose for a full 12-hour day. But what is TSP? Tamarind seed polysaccharide is what TSP is. It's a natural water-soluble polysaccharide. And what we know about it and what has been discovered by the manufacturer of Hydromed is that it's mucomimetic and mucoadhesive. So it's very effective at working at the mucus layer. It has a branch chain structure, very, very similar to ocular surface mucins. Now, I'm not going to spend a great deal on this slide, but what this slide is trying to show you is MUC1 is one of the ocular surface mucins, and it has a branch chain structure, and TSP has a very similar structure too. One of the other neat things is that it forms a bipolymer with hyaluronic acid, and it has a greater ability to encompass water when they're combined than they do as individual polymers. So you almost get a benefit that's greater than the sum of the two parts. So Hydromed comes in two formats. Both are HA and TSP. The mild to moderate formulation is 0.2% of both polymers, and the Hydromed Forte, as it's known, is the moderate to severe formulation, which has a higher concentration at 0.4% hyaluronic acid versus Hydromed. Most people find Hydromed will suffice. If you're finding that Hydromed, you're using Hydromed maybe more than 3-4 times a day, certainly more than 4, then I would look at Hydromed Forte, and you'll probably find you can cut down your drop usage to that sort of ideal 2 to 3 times a day. Really is what no more than you want to be doing first thing in the morning, lunchtime, and evening. And if you're having to do it more often, then you need to seek some professional advice, I would suggest, because your dry eye is certainly not under control. That might include finding a new eye drop. It might be finding some other new treatment, which is not the remit of this evening's webinar. Just a quick shout out for ointments, because if you're one of these people that wakes up in the morning with quite sore dry eyes, then you might be better off with a ointment. And ointments typically are liquid and white soft paraffin. Most of them contain vitamin A, as does Hydromed Night, but the sensitive bit comes in because it's lanolin free. So 1 in 5 people can be sensitive to lanolin. It's also an animal-based product, as you know, it's derived from sheep wool. And so for many patients, that's not an option that they want to use. So Hydromed Night Sensitive is uniquely lanolin free in the marketplace. One of the reasons you might, if you're anything like me, I use this every night because I know I sleep, my eyes partially open at night. And if I don't use this, my eyes are a lot sore in the morning. Whereas in the morning, once I've used this, I can open my eyes without them feeling too uncomfortable. Quick drop of Hydromed into the right and left eye, and that's me pretty much done for the day, and until I go to bed, when I'll put another squirt of the Night Sensitive in before I go to sleep. The main reason for using this product at night as well is it will blur your vision significantly, so don't try using ointments during the day. So finally, we come round to, not last nor least, the sort of section 6 of our circle of care, and that really is an interesting area which is of science which is developing quite rapidly. We know dry eye is an inflammatory disease, and we know that essential fatty acids such as omega-3s have anti-inflammatory properties, not just in the eye but in our bodies generally. And so actually the oral supplementation with good quality, again, it's like many things, you need good quality oils, and that means not ultra processed oils. It means as natural. Ideally, you want, if it's fish oil, you want it to come straight out of the fish and go into a capsule or a bottle, and not go through any processing which actually impacts the effectiveness of the oil in doing its job. And there are new options out there because some people don't like fish oils or don't want to take fish oils for a lot of different reasons. So there are new sort of vegan options, for want of a better way of putting it, in sea buckthorn oil and hyaluronic acid. And we have 2 products in our portfolio that use just those ingredients. So we have an omega-3 product currently in our portfolio, fish oil product. That contains eye nutrients. Dry omega capsules contain omega-3 and 7. I'll talk about omega-7 in a second. Whereas the new Peep Club Super Omega eye vitamins contains omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. So it has, and it's derived from wild harvested sea buckthorn. So I'm not going to spend any real time on this slide, but there are 3 fatty acids, EPA, DHA, and DPA, that are the ideal ones. Most supplements contain the first 2. Only a few, including the eye nutrients and the Super Omega from the Peep Club, contain DPA, and this is a very potent omega-3 fatty acid and stronger than the EPA and DHA. So and helps to reduce inflammation. So look out for products that contain DPA as well. Now, omega-7 is interesting in that it's another essential polyunsaturated fatty acid, and it's found in sea buckthorn berries, rather conveniently. So it is in the Peat Club product. And what we know about this is it's showing a great deal of promise regarding lipid metabolism and maintaining good mucous membranes, which reduces inflammation of the eye. And we were talking about the mucus layer of the tear film. That mucus is actually produced by glands on the inside of the eyelids. And those glands, the conjunctiva is a mucus layer under your eyelid, and it's producing the mucus layer. So taking a supplement, the theory is that an omega-7 supplement will actually help improve those mucous membranes and the production of the mucin, and thus, hopefully, from the inside out, if you like, improve the mucus layer at the ocular surface. This is a study on sea buckthorn oil. I'll just quickly, I mean, all we really need to cut to is the result at the bottom. But this looked at the impact of sea buckthorn oil on skin, blood markers, ocular health. And it was a randomized controlled trial, which is the best quality trial that you can do. And what they found looking at this, okay, a small number of patients, but it was, well, 100 isn't a bad number of patients, actually. And they took 4 times 500 milligrams of sea buckthorn oil or a placebo. And there was fewer subjects felt dry, nearly 20% felt less dryness and less burning as a result of taking this. And I'm sure there will be more studies that will look at the effect of sea buckthorn oil. But as this study suggests, like most supplements, because we're taking them systemically, they're having an impact on other parts of the body. So taking omega-3s, we know it has an impact on brain health and other aspects. It's anti-inflammatory, not just in the eyes, but also other parts of the body. So, you know, don't just think of it as you're taking something for the eye. Actually, the best quality eye products are also very effective on other areas of the body. One quick thing that is important, you'll notice these are in blister packs. And some people might be concerned about that because of environmental issues. It does increase packaging. And you'll have seen that our omega-3 supplement was actually in a small tub. It actually was originally, for the same reason as identified on this slide, in a blister. Because the problem with omega-3s is they're unstable and they oxidize rapidly. So ideally, they want to be kept in a sealed environment until they use them so that they don't absorb water or oxidize, because that degrades the quality of the oil and its ability to do its job and its nutritional value. Also, one of the things that you'll find with fish omega oils is that the fishy smell and aftertaste often is due to these having oxidized. And again, the purer the oil, the more natural the oil is, the less fishy aftertaste and smell you'll get from those products. So blister packs is the way to go. Or if they are going to be put in tubs, you don't want any more than 30. You don't, or a month's supply. It might be more than 30, but if it's 2 capsules a day, that's fine. You just want it to be used fairly quickly. So blister packs ideally, next best 30s, and certainly don't buy any kind of supplement in a capsule in big bucket-sized tubs, because the stuff that you're using at the end of the tub is really probably doing very little at all, because it will have oxidized. And then finally, we have a new product, which is oral hyaluronic acid. So we've talked about hyaluronic acid being taken topically, being put into your eye via eye drops, but who knew that hyaluronic acid might have some benefits internally? Well, I know a couple of mates who cycle with me who have had injections of hyaluronic acid into their knees, because hyaluronic acid is found throughout the body. Its water, its lubricating properties due to its water binding are well known, and we find it in synovial joints, fluid of synovial joints all around our body. So we've known that HA should be in the body. but will it actually have a benefit if it's taken orally for the eyes? Well, quickly, here's a couple of clinical slides, and I won't spend a lot of time. The key thing you're seeing in both slides is a reduction in the numbers, and that means improvement in symptoms on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, it means that the comfort scores that using the OSDI questionnaire are improving over a 60-day period. And then another quick one to look at, this was a second study looking at the brand of HA used in this supplement. And what it found again is increased production. This time we wanted a higher number. At day 56, the blue bar is higher because there's more tears available in the eye, and the redness of the eye is reduced significantly. In this chart, you'll see that you almost can't see a blue bar because the eyes now look white. The redness of the eye has completely disappeared following taking the supplement. So HA again is a benefit. We have people using it who find their knees, for example, feel a little less achy and more comfortable through taking something that they're actually using for their dry eyes as well. So there are, when you're looking at the cost of these things, you can also factor in that it may well have beneficial effects on other parts of the body, not just your dry eyes. So, top tips for better dry eye management in conclusion, before we move on to any questions you may have. Coming in the wrong order, that's very helpful. That's because I readjusted the order before I started. So the first thing I would say is always get formal diagnosis and advice from your dry eye specialist. I'm hoping everyone here this evening is already seeing a dry eye practitioner and having success at managing their symptoms. If you're not, then please consider doing so. Modern electronic devices, I think, offer a more convenient, a more accurate, and a more consistent level of heat that you're more likely to comply with doing and use every day than the old-fashioned microwavable bags. In evaporative dry eye, I think it's better to stimulate your natural oils from the meibum in your eyelids than to improve the lipid layer, that top oily layer of the tear film, rather than using drops and sprays to try and do that. So daily lid warming and cleansing. Hypochlorous is also often the missing link in the current protocols to keep those eyelids clear. I think the other benefit of hypochlorous is it's a lovely, simple spray. So if you do find yourself rushing for time, or you're staying away and you forget your lid cleanser, then if you've got some hypochlorous, a quick spray of that every day is certainly better than doing nothing. But don't consider hypochlorous as the catch-all. You need to do the physical cleaning as well. Carefully consider your eye drop formulation and question the clinical evidence. There's a lot of marketing claims out there. Are they backed up by science and studies supporting the claims that are being made? It's a grey area at the moment. If the product is a CE marked, it shouldn't be making claims beyond the clinical evidence. But some of these companies will happily push the boundaries. Look at preservative-free, and certainly also check out if they're preservative-free, whether they have things like sodium borate or sodium phosphate in them. These are buffers, but these can also irritate eyes and cause problems. And as I mentioned, consider Hydromed and stabilizing that tear film from the ground up. And finally, supplements may be beneficial. Now, the one thing I always say as a caveat to that, you can't replace a good quality diet, but unfortunately many of us don't have the best diet that we can for a whole host of different reasons, and that's where supplements can help. Supplements can't really help with HA. The HA supplement really is only available as a supplement. But when it comes to omega, polyunsaturated, and getting those fatty acids into the system, then fish. If you don't mind fish and you enjoy fish, increase your oily fish consumption, and that will help significantly. If you don't like oily fish, then yeah, omega supplements may be the answer. So thank you for your attention. If you want more information, you can get more information on our Dry Eye Zone website. Visit dryeyezone.co.uk. If you want any specific queries about any of our products that you don't feel are answered on the website, always email our customer services at info@DryEyeZone. And we have a phone number. We're not one of these faceless businesses that you can't get through on the phone. So you can call our office down in East Sussex and get to speak to someone about your question. So I have a couple of questions that have come in, and one of them is, can I get copies of the clinical studies for, and the answer is yes. If you contact any of those, contact customer services on the phone or via email, we can certainly send you those studies if you're interested. Another question, why can't we use the higher formulation of Hydromed? You can, of course. It is slightly more expensive, but Hydromed actually is still a very good value supplement eye drop compared with others. So certainly you could start on it, and there's no harm in doing so. That's probably the key point. It is slightly more viscous, but the blurring that you get is momentarily there. It's not really going to cause you any problems. So certainly that's not a problem, Maxine. You could start using Hydromed Forte right from the beginning. One thing I didn't mention is on the website now you'll see two different forms of packaging. We're in the process of Hydromed's moved to some much more modern looking packaging, and Hydromed Forte will follow. My slides are slightly old using the old packaging of the product. If you're using the wand, do we need to use Demex whilst using it? And also, how long will the wand last? The wand has a 12-month guarantee. We have people using the original wands well beyond a year. I think we've had it in our portfolio 2 years, so there's probably people out there with the wand for a good couple of years. So whilst it's a more expensive investment than a cheap bag, it will last well, and trust me, it'll get used because of all the other benefits that come with it, which makes it much better value for money. You'll need to replace your bags probably every 3 to 6 months. If you're using them regularly, of course, maybe not so often if you're not. Demex isn't used with the wand. Demex is used as a separate step, separate from the wand. And what you will need to help the wand slip across the eyelid, it's a pity I haven't got one, but you literally get it to move across the eyelids very, very slowly, about a minute on each eyelid, top, bottom, left and right. And you do that for about 10 minutes, so a couple of minutes on each eyelid. And you need something to create slippage. The wand will not, you don't want to drag it across the surface of the skin. The Peep Club have a very nice coconut balm that is very effective at doing that. But you can simply use your eye drop, and actually Hydromed, for example, or even the Hydromed Night Sensitive, if you're using it being an ointment, could be used on the, put it on the eyelids or a bit on the tip of the wand and use that to effectively move across the eye with the wand. Children, can they use the eye wand? Only really if they have dry eyes, and sadly more kids with screen use, teenagers using screens, we are finding that dry eye, it affects about 1 in 3 people, and sadly it's becoming something that is significantly affecting teenagers, and 20-year-olds are coming with severe meibomian gland dysfunction through staring at phone screens, at computer screens, playing games, etc. So firstly, if you're a parent, get the kids out and about and off those screens as much as possible, because otherwise they could end up with dry eye like us older people have for very early on and for the rest of their life, and we really don't want that. So yes, kids can use the wands. I would only recommend using the heat and the massage, not the LEDs. They don't really need anti-aging products, which is a whole nother subject. We sell a range of products that are safe for use around the eye, and increasingly we see kids using retinols around the eye for anti-aging, and we know that's a bad thing. We don't really need to use the LEDs on the wand. let's just stick to using the heat and massage. And what's the final question? Do I have to use all the products? No, you don't. Ideally, you have an insight into what type of dryer you have, and your practitioner is advising you as the things you need to use. Always take your practitioner's advice. No harm in asking him when you discover new things on webinars like this, or through internet searches or social media, etc. Oh, I've heard about this. What do you think? And as I say, always check out the Dry Eye Zone. We try and keep it up to date with the latest research and thinking on what to do to manage your dry eye. And that doesn't always involve buying products. That can be simple lifestyle changes that you can make that will help your dry eyes. So I think that's it. We've pretty much done an hour, and most of you stuck with me, so I'm extremely grateful for that. Hopefully you found this evening's webinar interesting. As I say, go to the Dry Eye Zone if you're not already a regular customer of ours or visitor for more information, and watch out for January next year when we'll be doing some more educational programs to help practitioners and sharing some of the latest thinking, because it's constantly changing. Probably a month doesn't go by where there's not a new technology or a new study showing telling us more about how we can manage this, what can be very debilitating disease for many. So yeah, just leaves me to thank you for your attendance, and hope to see you again soon. Bye now.